We finally made it back home. What an epic, epic trip. We were with the greatest people. We saw the greatest sights. It truly was an awesome trip. I'm tired. You can probably see it. We've been home a day or two, and the clock, is not ticking very well as far as lining up with the current time zone and all that in our heads. But so those of you that might not know, we organized, or we had a tour of people that were like-minded through legacy tours, where we started in Egypt, then we spent the bulk of the time in Israel, and then we ended in Jordan. Actually had to come back to Israel to leave, but I'll get into all that. We had some sicknesses. We had people that, it was rough. But for the bulk people, they stayed strong and healthy. There was a big contingency of individuals that were on Cardio Miracle. It was so funny sitting in the hotel restaurant part, or where they fed us, and everybody had their water bottle with the color of Cardio Miracle there. It was pretty funny. I stayed okay. I'm going to still knock on wood, because you're around people that you're on planes, you're on buses, you're surrounded, you're in different environments, different temperatures, your body's going up and down and all these things. And for Sue and I, she got a little cough, but stayed okay. But we took a picture and sent it to John Hewlett of a few of us that were Cardio Miracle customers. But I'm a believer in it. It was great. Like-minded individuals. It was really, really good. We had one of the owners. I won't give out her name because I didn't get her permission, but of Legacy Tours, and her daughter-in-law that came and shepherded us all, and Sue and I were the hosts of the trip, and we just had great conversations, great things. But really, if you think about it, Egypt, Israel, and Jordan are the Holy Land. It is the Holy Land. Israel's the focus and the center of that, which geographically it is as well, for the most part. Egypt's more south, but incredible. I also want to just talk real quick about the change in general conference. There's no more Saturday evening session. Think of it is kind of strange, the things that happen with that. I might be wrong on the order of this, but I first think my first thought it was canceled, and then for a period of time under President Nelson, and I remember him saying, well, this is the ongoing restoration, and I was like, what? But anyway, that was canceled, and then they resurrected it to so they did away with priesthood, and then they canceled the priesthood session, because that was always Saturday for as long as I can, as long as I was a deacon. My dad and I would go, and then it was my sons and my dad and my cousins, and it was such a cool tradition. I really, really miss that, and my boys miss it. And now they have kids that are, priesthood holders, some of them, and that was a rough deal to not have that. But it is what it is. And then they went to women in the fall having the evening session, the fall session of conference, and men in the spring. My wife was always upset about that. She goes, women should have the spring. That's life and, flowers and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And in all reality, she's right, because fall is, hunting and football. And so you kind of don't want conference around all that. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So anyway, did that for a while. Then it went back to just the evening session with all, with everybody again. It was just another session. Now, I did hear from one of my sources that I refuse to reveal, said that when the priesthood session was just canceled, the reason why it came back so fast, not the priesthood session, but a session for conference, is that one of the presidents of the 70 kind of spearheaded this thought to the first president, Sea and Qumran the 12, of like, you know, the 70 only gets so many opportunities to speak in conference. I think it's once in every 5 years. If you know something on that, let me know. But I think that's what I heard. They get an opportunity every 5 years to speak, and just eliminating one session of conference, you know, stretches that out to almost 6 years for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, so they reinstated it and all that. Not a big deal, but it is something kind of interesting. That's what we came home to. The big news. No more Saturday evening session. I think it's because downtown Salt Lake's so dangerous, they don't want people down there at night. But I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay, the trip. This isn't going to be, this is just shooting right off my head. I'm not looking at notes. I'm not doing anything. So it's going to be a little rough, but that's, you guys are used to that with my videos. Before I get into that, I have to say I did not teach section 132. I miscalculated. It would have been my turn, but we were supposed to get home on a Monday after that Sunday of teaching 132. We ended up coming home on a Tuesday because of the flight delay. But I had miscalculated when we were coming home. I thought I'd be home that Sunday, and so I thought I'd be teaching, and I would have been. It would have been my turn, and I would have also taught in both Institute and Gospel Doctrine. I think the Lord was looking out for me because I didn't teach it, but we talked a lot about it on the trip. Pretty interesting. Can I just put a plug out for Karen Hyatt? And woe unto you scribes. It's a YouTube video. It's so good. It's a couple hours long, so you got to dedicate some time to it. But it is, to me, the calmest, most concise breakdown of plural marriage, why Joseph wasn't a polygamist, and Emma and Hiram, and they never preached or practiced it, and publicly always denied it. But it gets much more into that. The scriptural basis for it is what my favorite thing is. And then the historical evidence is just overwhelming. So I didn't get to teach it. And I think, you know, I often think God is a lot more in charge of things than we realize. I had a couple of amazing dreams on this trip. One of them was in the Wadi Rum Desert and in Jordan, and I dreamed that Sue and I were called back to preside over a mission, and there was a certain language. I'd have to look at my notes on that, but we were going to teach Jewish people from Africa, and we were going to have to learn this certain language that had immigrated or refugees from an African country or from a country in Africa, on the African continent, that had settled in California. And we were given these special phones that would help us with translation and stuff. And we were given an office couple and a young missionary that had already been exposed to these folks that were Jewish. They were Jews, but they were black, and they were living in California, and they're from Africa, and the language. And it was such a vivid dream. And I actually looked up the language and or type, you know, I just Googled it, and there was actually a type from Africa of that language, and they do have some Jewish heritage. So I was like, wow, it was mind-blowing. I told Sue about it right off the bat when we woke up. We were awake, and it was just because fortunately it was one of those later dreams, like right before you wake up, so everything was still vivid. It was really cool. And then I had another dream that I won't get into that was pretty cool too. So yeah, trips and time zones and things. So we left, I think we were gone a full 3 weeks, maybe a little more than 3 weeks. But we flew from here, from Salt Lake. We did. We had people from Canada, the Midwest, people that left early to travel and see things, you know, before we got there. It was awesome. It was just absolutely awesome. But most were from Utah and flew out of Salt Lake. Not all, but most. You could add on Egypt at the beginning. Everyone went to Israel, and then you could add on Jordan. And I would say the bulk did the whole thing, and then some just did Egypt and Israel, and some did Israel and Jordan. So we flew from Salt Lake, the bulk of us, to Paris. We had a long layover in Paris, like 10 hours. And so we asked everybody, hey, you know, we know how to work the trains here. We did this in February, not on purpose in February. It just happened because our flight missed the connection. But we were able to take the train in and go to Notre Dame, the cathedral, newly renovated after the fire. And it's, you know, we went in February as well, but it was so cool. I have people, we waited in line, talked to people. We did that, and then we were like, well, we better get back to the airport for our international flight to Tel Aviv, or excuse me, to Cairo. We flew to Cairo. So we got to Cairo. Cairo was absolutely crazy, amazing. It's been since 2018 that Sue and I have been to Egypt, and we got to the Great Pyramid. We rode camels, the Sphinx, the Great Pyramid. We went into the tunnel into the King's Chamber. It was so cool. The museum, unfortunately for us, opened the day that we left, the new museum. So we'll be heading back there sometime to see that amazing, amazing museum that I've heard nothing but good about. But so we were on the Giza Plateau. It was just amazing. If you haven't seen the Great Pyramid and the pyramids there, we even got to go see the Step Pyramid. That is the oldest pyramid I've wanted. I can't remember the name of it right now. We saw tombs. We saw the tombs. I'll tell you, we went to one place, the tombs of the workers. They decorated their graves better than they did the kings. It was so vivid and so cool, so awesome. We took a flight down, and we were in the Valley of the Kings. We saw Luxor and Karnak. We saw Queen who became Pharaoh, and only woman Pharaoh. Hatshepsut, let's see, Hatshepsut, something like that. It's kind of like a hat and a cheap suit. That's how I was told to remember it. She, amazing. Her temple, if you've been to Egypt, you'll know what I'm talking about. Incredible. We talked about the ties in the Old Testament. We had a Muslim, Egyptian, Arab guide in that area, but he knew his Bible and he knew Christian understanding of it. This is cool. In Luxor and Karnak, we got to see the facsimile in the book of Abraham on the altar. We got to see a very similar one, and it was really kind of cool because the place was closed where it was because there's construction, renovation, fixing it. But our guide asked the workers and some people there if we could just come in quickly. And he said, yeah, you have 5 minutes. So we went in, snapped some pictures, and it was pretty cool to see that. You see in several places, really amazing similarities of the dead passing through the veil and the celestial embrace and handshakes and all these cool things. It's really cool in hieroglyphic form. Incredible place. This was just kind of a shorter trip, so we didn't float the Nile and go down to places, but we flew down to where we could. We didn't get as far as Aswan. Interesting thing about the temple complex there, when they expanded the dam, it flooded one of the ruins, the beautiful ruins, and it needed to be well, the dam wasn't going to go away, and the water wasn't going to go away. So the Egyptian government wanted to find a new place for this temple complex. So disassemble and reassemble it somewhere else, and they did that. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints paid for a lot of that. Pretty amazing. And so the church is tied to Egypt. So, of course, you have Abraham. You have Joseph, who then involves his whole family coming to Egypt in the land of Goshen, which would be west, maybe north a little bit, north and east of Cairo, the land of Goshen. You have Moses coming out of Egypt. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. You have, and everything with that story, just incredible. And then you have Christ himself, Joseph and Mary leaving to save young Jesus, and that resides in Egypt until their return, back to Nazareth. Pretty interesting, all that. And it's prophesied that he would come out of Egypt, the Messiah would come out of Egypt. So all these ties to Egypt. So that was incredible. We then, there's some difficulty sometimes flying from Egypt into Israel. But so we had to fly to Athens, Greece, land there, not too long of a layover, and then from Athens fly to Tel Aviv, to Israel, and then we began there. And there we started on the ground running. Now, a few people have been there a day ahead of us, so they got to see Joppa or Jaffa, however you want the port there. So many cool stories. You have the Jonah and the well story there. You also have Peter getting the vision up on the roof. I always think of the James Taylor song, Up on the Roof. There at Simon the Tanner, and that the gospel goes to everyone, the whole world. So Joppa's a lot of cool things there. And then we went to Caesarea, Maritime Caesarea, big Roman influence there, but you can also see remnants of Herod's palace. You can see where Paul would have been imprisoned for 2 years, all the things that happened. And really, and Christian martyrs that were used for sport there. It's an incredible place to feel, what went on. There's evidence of the Crusaders and the Templars building in that area still remain, their influence, all in that area. So Paul, of course, was there. I talked about that. Anyway, so then we continued on up. We went to Mount Carmel, where Elijah slew the priests of Baal. And that's one of my favorite Bible stories. It just shows the, maybe not sense of humor, but just an interesting approach that Elijah has, mocking the priests of Baal and then slaying them. It's just incredible, or having them slayed. And you're right there. You look down on the Jezreel Valley or the Valley of Armageddon, you see all that. It's incredible. So you talk about things like that. We then continued on to Nazareth, and we focused this time on the village, the Nazareth village. You can Google that. It's incredible. It's like you're stepping back at the time of Jesus living in Nazareth. And it's just this place on a side hill that's special. And the things they teach, the things that you learn about the olive presses and what a carpenter, a stonemason would have been. You just learn a lot of things. But it's all tied into gospel messages and Christian gospel messages. So it's so cool. Not only Jewish, but Christian. It's amazing. And then we passed through the town close to Cana, the first miracle, water to wine, headed on down to Galilee, and then spent all that time, 2 days in Galilee region, Chorazin, Bethsaida, the fishing villages, all at Capernaum, the main village there, and the synagogue, and Peter's house, and boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. They found a boat that's first century boat when the water was really low several years ago, and they were able to raise it, and it's on display. We went and saw that. Incredible Mount of Beatitudes, all those things, everything where the fish and the loaves, the feeding the 4,000 and 5,000, feeding the looking over towards, we didn't get over to that way, but where Christ cast the demon out, the legions, I am legion, and into the swine, and they ran into the Sea of Galilee and drowned themselves. Looking over towards that area and Bethsaida. Incredible. So then from there we went down to Bet Shean, which is one of the most preserved Roman sites ever, but it's also the site where Jonathan, the son of Saul, and Saul himself were killed right there, and their bodies up, and there's a little hilltop overlooking Bet Shean. Just amazing sight there to see. We continued on down. We went to Jericho, where the walls came tumbling down. A lot of people won't go to Jericho. I prefer it. The sycamore tree, the story of the sycamore tree. It's an awesome place. We went to the baptismal site of Jesus, where Joshua would have crossed with the children of Israel from the Jordan side to the promised land, to Israel. And it all happened right there. It was so cool just to look across this river, little stream really, and on the other side is Jordan. And security and everything else. We crossed that border a couple times. I'll talk about that. I don't really want to get into a blow-by-blow on everything because I can't really remember it all, number one. But then we went down and stayed at a really nice place right on the Dead Sea. And we were close to Masada and Qumran. So Masada is the fortress that Herod built. But then the rebels, 660 AD-ish, utilized Herod's fortress to be their final standoff with the Romans. And just incredible teaching there. They found writings of Jeremiah 38 and 39 of all things, and the dry bones coming together. And their stories is amazing because technically only one person really killed themselves, because they found the pottery shards where they would draw lots. And so if you drew your name, you would kill your family instead of being ravaged by the Romans and murdered and whatever would happen, what the Romans would do to you. And then the next person draw a lot would kill that guy that just had taken his family out. And it went on and on like that till the last person. Now, there were a few that escaped. Josephus records all this. A woman and some children, I think, maybe a couple of women and some children, were allowed to escape so that they could tell the story. So that's incredible. Qumran is one of my favorite places. And it's not too far from Masada, but and also right below Masada is one of the proposed sites of Sodom and Gomorrah and the three other cities that were around there. It's just a big sulfur ball down there, fire and brimstone, sulfur in it. And there's no ruins because it was all destroyed. So very likely possibility of that area. Well, then we went to Qumran, and that is just an amazing place. And the full Isaiah scroll, you can read it almost exactly what our Isaiah said. And I don't think that's by accident. And the story of the Bedouin young man herding sheep and goats, and he discovers those, and then it gets sold and back and forth, and then it ends up in Jordan for a while, these scrolls, and finally, it wakes up the world. And really it happened right at the time, similar time as when Israel became a country, became a state, 1948. I think they discovered those in 47, but it took a while to get traction, right? So we did that, and then worked our way back up to, and there's so much. The Essenes that were in Qumran, ritual baths, very righteous in a sense of separating themselves from the world. They wanted just to be, study the word. They would eat together. It was a communal kind of thing. And many feel that John the Baptist spent some time there. And there's a film that you watch that suggests that. So it's kind of cool. Worked our way to, I think we went back to Jericho for a short time, and then we got up to Jerusalem. And then we spent the bulk of our time in Jerusalem. I think we were in that hotel for 6 days. And I'll just touch a couple of highlights. One of my favorites is starting at the top of the Mount of Olives, the Church of Ascension, tiny, more like a shrine, the bedrock of the very top of the Mount of Olives, where Christ left his apostles, but said he will return. And Zechariah says that's where he will come, the Mount of Olives, for a second coming. So, and then we made the ascent down, all the way down the Mount of Olives to the Kidron Valley, and found ourselves in the Garden of Gethsemane. And then we went to the Orson Hyde Memorial Park and did all that. It was just incredible. We started that day, I believe it was that day, of going to church at the Jerusalem Center. And the talks were just so good. 2 young men spoke and just nailed it. Great spirit. You're looking over the Temple Mount. You're looking down the Kidron Valley and looking down on Mount Moriah. It's an incredible place. So got in a little trouble because I didn't notify them that we were coming, and they said you have to let us know that you're coming if you're bringing a group. And it's like, okay, sorry. There weren't that many people there, but a fair amount. Way more than in February because there were no students when we were there in February, but now there are students there. So anyway, I love that. We did the Western Wall tunnels, which is very fascinating. The Western Wall just continues underground, and you can see these megalithic stones that were placed. It's so good. We saw all the sites around Jerusalem. I shouldn't say all the sites. We were busy. We did as much as we possibly could. So incredible. The Western Wall is one of my favorite places. It probably went down 4 times in the evening, usually. Sometimes we were there midday. We got to the Temple Mount. We even got over to Bethany, just on the other side of the Mount of Olives. And this is a hard place to get into. That was amazing. Actually, I think we did that the day that we did the Jerusalem Center. That's what we did. And Bethany is where Lazarus was raised from the dead, where Mary and Martha, and that great story there, and the anointing of Jesus. It's all right there. The tomb of Lazarus is there. It's, I would say, call it a B site. It probably don't know if that exactly was his tomb, but it's in Bethany. It's right there. It's a tomb of ancient origin. And it's a church built, venerated by Helena, Constantine's mother, 300 and something AD. So pretty likely spot, and really felt great to go there. Now I'm gonna cut this dialogue short, and I'll probably pick up on the next video because I want to read this. We went to Bethlehem, and before we went to the shepherd's fields, which I'll describe later, and also the traditional site, we stopped at Rachel's tomb. A lot of people don't go there. And I wanted to read this, and I'll end with this. Rachel, why is it important? Why care about making a pilgrimage to Rachel's tomb? Well, she's the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. Joseph, for most of us, is our, great grandfather, because we come through Joseph through Ephraim or Manasseh, but let's say most of us are Ephraim. So this is our mom. This is our grandma. And let me read this to you. The Hebrew month of, and I'll butcher these Hebrew words, so I apologize, but Cheshvan arrives with no festivals, no commemorations, not even a fast day or a mark of historical tragedy. The days grow shorter, darkness creeps in earlier each evening, and the skies open with the season's first rains. Unlike the spiritually charged months that surround, all the holy holidays, I won't name them here. This time, and it's pretty much the month of, end of October, first part of November. It appears empty, a void in the rhythm of Jewish time. Some acknowledge this bleakness by calling it Mar Sheshvan, bitter Sheshvan, a name that captures the month's seemingly barren character. Others associate the bitterness of this month with the death of the matriarch Rachel that occurred on the 11th day of Sheshvan as she gave birth to Benjamin on the road to Ephrat. So this is in Bethlehem. This is where Rachel died. Rachel's death introduces a question that strikes at the heart of Jewish survival. Through exile, why did Rachel, Jewish survival through exile, why did Rachel die on the roadside and buried hastily in the dirt rather than carried to the family tomb in Hebron, where the other matriarchs rest in honor. So there was a little printing error here, so I was trying to, that's how I had trouble reading it. But so why was she buried on the roadside in a random place instead of having her body, her remains taken to Hebron? Not that far, maybe 20 miles, maybe something like that. And here's where the other matriarchs are. And then, thus said Hashem, restrain your voice from weeping, your eyes from shedding tears, for there is a reward for your labor, declares Hashem. They shall return from the enemy's land. Jeremiah 31:15. The prophet Jeremiah transmits this haunting image centuries after Rachel's death, and his language echoes the very name sometimes given to the month in which she died. The bitter weeping. The month and the mother share the same word, the same wound, the same refusal to accept consolation. What is the meaning of this verse? So that if you read Jeremiah 31:15 and 16, that area. A very, very famous rabbi lived, I think, in the 12th century, maybe 11th century. His name is Rashi. I've read his stuff, his commentaries, not all, obviously, but some. And here's how he explains. Rashi explains that when the Babylonians drove the Jews from their land into exile, they walked past Rachel's tomb, and she emerged from her resting place to cry out and petition heaven on their behalf. Unlike the other patriarchs and matriarchs who rest together in Hebron, Rachel stands alone on the road to intercede for her children in their moment of supreme anguish. The sages reveal the depth of Rachel's power to petition for her children in a remarkable teaching. When the patriarchs and matriarchs came before God to plead for mercy after the wicked king Manasseh placed an idol in the holy temple, God remained unmoved by their appeals. Then Rachel entered and spoke, Master of the universe, whose mercy is greater, yours or that of flesh and blood? Surely yours. I brought my rival into my house. All the labor Jacob performed for my father was done for my sake alone. When the time came for me to enter the bridal chamber, my sister was brought in my place. I not only remained silent, but I gave her the secret signs Jacob and I had arranged. You too, though your children have brought your enemy into your house, be silent towards them in mercy. And God responded, you have defended them well. There is reward for your labor, for your righteousness is giving your signs to your sister. Remember the story of Rachel giving up her. So listen to this. Rachel's sacrifice was total. She surrendered her wedding night, her rightful place as Jacob's first wife, and endured years watching her sister bear children while she remained barren. She lived her entire life as a co-wife. She had to share. She had to wait. She had to swallow bitterness. She gave up what was hers by right and by love because she could not bear to see her sister shamed. This act of selfless sacrifice became the merit that would echo through all generations of Jewish exile. Her burial on the roadside was not an accident or tragedy of circumstance. It was divine providence. Jacob buried Rachel precisely where her voice would meet the Jewish people at their lowest point. The cave of the patriarchs in Hebron was prestigious and permanent, but it was not on the road to exile. Rachel needed to be positioned where her children would pass by in their moment of greatest despair. Her grave became a house of prayer, not despite its roadside location, but because of it. Perhaps that is why she died on Sheshvan, the month with no festivals. When the Jewish calendar overflows with celebrations of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and all the others, Purim, we focus on redemption already achieved, on miracles already witnessed, on joy already experienced. But Sheshvan strips away celebration and focuses us to sit with what we lack. The month's emptiness mirrors exile itself. No festivals means no distractions from the darkness. No spiritual highs to numb us to the reality of displacement and longing. In this space of absence, Rachel's voice became audible. The bitter month holds the bitter weeping of a mother who will not stop crying for her children. The month's bitterness is not incidental to Rachel's story. It is the very condition that makes her advocacy possible. Just as her roadside grave positioned her geographically to intercede for the exiles, Sheshvan's calendar, emptiness, positions us spiritually to hear her tears, to hear God's response, and to hear God's response to them. For Rachel's weeping is not met with silence, it is met with promise. The rains that began in Sheshvan embody this promise. In Sheshvan, as rain falls on the land where Rachel lies buried on the roadside, we witness a profound parallel. Both rain and tears carry hidden generative power. Rain in Jewish tradition is blessing the divine gift that awakens dormant seeds and brings forth life from seemingly barren earth. The first rains of Sheshvan soak into dark soil, triggering transformation we cannot see. Rachel's tears work the same way. What sounds like lamentations is actually intercession. What looks like inconsolable grief is actually tireless advocacy that moves heaven itself. God's response to her weeping, "There is reward for your labor," reveals that her tears are not barren but generative, not an ending but a beginning of redemption. Just as rain falls in apparent emptiness yet produces the harvest months later, Rachel's bitter weeping is the bitter month's water seeds of return that will surely bloom. This is the paradox of the bitter month. Sheshvan appears empty, but it holds the fullest truth. That emptiness can be generative, that darkness contains hidden growth, that a mother's tears can carry the power to move heaven. The month's lack of festivals is not absent, but present of different kind, the presence of promise taking root. When we sit with Sheshvan's emptiness rather than pushing past it towards the next celebration, we learn what Rachel knew, that the deepest transformations happen not in moments of visible triumph, but in the hidden work of tears that refuse to stop, of love that will not abandon, of seeds germinating in darkness. The promise God speaks to Rachel echoes through every Sheshvan. There is reward for your labor, and your children will return to their borders. This is not distant hope, but certainly rooted in Rachel's merit. Her tears already accomplished what the other patriarchs and matriarchs could not. They moved God to mercy when he seemed unmovable. The rains of Sheshvan prepare the earth for harvest that will come. Rachel's bitter weeping prepares heaven for redemptions that will surely arrive. The month's emptiness is not void, but is not a void, but a womb, dark and hidden, where the future is being formed. Wow. With that, I say goodbye on this one. God bless you all. I'll finish the kind of the recap of the trip on the next video. Heading to Texas in a couple of days for Thanksgiving, trying to get caught up on some rest. I know someone will correct my pronunciation on the festival and the things going on there. So thank you for that. And try Cardio Miracle. It's amazing. I can't believe I stayed healthy through all that, but I did. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.